It says here now, presentation of speaker gift, Robert Sitton. Oh, that's afterwards. Okay, skip that part. Note to self, keep on going. All right, so without further ado, let's welcome our guest speaker, Mattress Mac.
Thank you very much. I'm honored and thrilled to be here today at Kingwood at the Small Business Salute. I'm a huge fan of Insperity and all the small businesses here today and all the great things Insperity does for so many small businesses like Gallery Furniture. And must also admit I really like this solid wood furniture podium. But you know what? I do thousands of speeches all over Houston, from Kingwood to Galveston, from Beaumont to San Antonio. And this room at the Kingwood Country Club is the toughest room I've ever had to speak at because I get so distracted by this breathtaking view. There's none better. It's absolutely beautiful. We had some out-of-town consultants at Gallery Furniture trying to teach us how to do some new things today. And these guys that were from the north. And they said to me, is the weather always like this in Houston? I said, oh yeah, every day. No, not a problem. Not a problem. They said, we ought to move. I said, come on, it's even better in July. I didn't know what I was going to talk about today, so I thought I'd talk about some topical things. April of 2015, I was called by a friend of mine. Her name is Julie Turner. She runs the Woodlands Tea Party. And she said, Mac, I got to have you come over here in about 2 weeks and interview Donald Trump. And I said, well, Julie, I don't know anything about Donald Trump. She said, you got to interview him. I said, okay. So I read 5 or 6 books about Donald Trump, and they had this reception for Donald Trump at the Kingwood Country Club before we did the interview at the Woodlands High School in the auditorium there. So I'm in there waiting for him to arrive. He shows up. He had 2 or 3 people with him. And they prepped him on who I was. He walked up to me and he says, what the hell am I here for? And I told him. He said, I got it. He said, look, I got 45 minutes of good energy. After that, I'm done. So I said, okay. And then he started looking around this country club. And just by looking at the golf course, he knew who had designed the golf course. And he started picking apart the clubhouse, all the things that needed maintenance. And he said, why is the road driving in here, the asphalt road, why is it all torn up? I mean, this is a nice place. And I said, I don't know. He said, do you think I should buy this place? I said, well, that's up to you. And he told me that day that he was going to announce for president in June, and darned if he didn't, and look at what happened. So I thought I would examine today, in the context of small business, my simple opinion on why Donald Trump scored an absolutely stunning upset that we all watched into the wee hours of the night last Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. I played football at the University of Texas many years ago. And I was a great football player at the University of Texas. I played there in 1969 and 1970 when the Longhorns won 30 straight games, 2 consecutive national championships. And as I said, I was a great football player at the University of Texas. I only had 2 small problems. Number 1, I was too small. Number 2, I was too slow. And the position I played was called the bench. But anyway, I was on the team. So my niece was getting married last Saturday, right outside of Austin, and I was there. And I was talking to a friend of mine who played football at the University of Texas. He's a prominent lawyer. And Texas that afternoon was going to play West Virginia. And my friend is a prominent lawyer and a Democrat and a very good guy. He said to me, he said, you know, I went to the West Virginia game when Texas played at West Virginia last year. I said, well, how was it? He said, I'd never seen such a blighted area in my life. He said half the people there were either addicted to methamphetamine or heroin addicts. And he couldn't make the connection between all these problems and the 50,000 jobs they cost the coal industry when they shut those mines down. Because you see, when people have no job, they have no hope. They have no future. And they spiral into a web of depression. And I know a lot about mental illness. My daughter Elizabeth has severe mental illness. And depression is contagious, just like optimism is contagious or flu is contagious. Did you know that in this wonderful country there's 100 million people out of work? And did you know in this country that 2 people an hour die of heroin overdose? 2 people an hour. And 1.5 veterans an hour commit suicide because they have PTSD and they come back and they have no job. And nobody thanks them or consults with them or consoles them, not enough people do, about the horror they went through. So I'm watching those election returns the other night, and I had been told if Donald Trump won North Carolina and Florida, he was probably going to win. So I was watching, and in came North Carolina for Donald Trump. North Carolina used to be the furniture making capital of the world. The United States furniture business started in upstate New York a couple hundred years ago. Then it migrated to Grand Rapids, Michigan, where Steelcase and some of the companies still are, and Kindle, and then it moved to North Carolina. Over the last 20 years, the furniture manufacturing business in North Carolina has lost 100,000 jobs. Entire communities have been devastated. And you know what happened was the MBAs from Wharton or Harvard or Stanford came in and said, you know, we're paying these people in this town $15 to $20 an hour to make this furniture. We can get it made in China for 50 cents an hour, and if we do that, our profits will triple. And so they started the unthinkable. They started closing the plants. One little town of Bassett, Virginia was a company town in the finest terms of the word. Bassett, Virginia was a company town all based around Bassett Furniture, which in the 1960s was the biggest furniture manufacturer in the world. In Bassett, Virginia, during the Great Depression, not only did they have their own fire department, their own police department, their own high school, all funded by Bassett Furniture Company, but they also had their own currency during the Great Depression. And then Bassett Furniture offshored like everybody else did, and they lost thousands of jobs. They went from 10,000 people employed to about 60. And the town is devastated. There's a friend of mine that's a consultant for furniture manufacturers. He lives here in Kingwood. He wrote a book about the devastation of the furniture business in North Carolina and tells a story about they came into this plant where there was 3,000 people employed, and they fired everybody but the top executives. And they told the executives if they wanted to get their severance pay, they had to move to China for 6 months and teach the Chinese how to do their job. And they packed up all the equipment and shipped it over to China. And they left some American inspectors over there to inspect the furniture the Chinese make sure it was good. 2 of those American inspectors mysteriously jumped out of the 5th floor of the dormitory. But then everything got passed and checked. And yes, a lot of money was made. But the question is, how many towns, how many lives, how many people, how many communities did we destroy? There is a human cost to all this offshore. And I'm not in favor of tariffs or penalties on the other countries, but I think the American worker should be given a fighting chance. And all you small business people out there like me who struggle to make payroll every week, realize, please, that you are the backbone of this country. Because when people go to work for you, they feel safe, they feel secure, and all their friends are at work. I firmly believe that that work is life's greatest therapy. And I believe the good Lord put us on this earth to work. There was a passage from St. Paul at the Catholic Church I attended, read last Sunday, and it was just amazing they talked about if you wanted to eat, you had to work. And so North Carolina fell. Then Ohio fell. Then Pennsylvania, and then Michigan, and then it was all over. And it fell because those people said, I gotta have a job. And there's people out there depending on you and me every single day. We had a meeting with our warehouse guys a couple of weeks ago, not knowing what to expect. I went in there and I asked them, this was several weeks before the election, I said, what are some of the bright spots in your life? And one young man raised his hand. He said, I've been coming to these meetings for 3 years now. I used to come to a meeting. We have a meeting every Tuesday with the warehouse staff. And he said, I would sleep throughout the meeting. I thought these meetings were total bullshit. He said, and then I started listening to the meetings and I said, wow, these guys have got something to say. And he said, I started going home and teaching my children what I was learning in these meetings. And he said, I'm proud to say for the first time ever in my family's history, my children will graduate not from college, but from high school. That's the difference you small business people make in the community. Another one said, I have this job, it gives me structure, it gives me function, it gives me a reason to get up every day. And he said, this job has kept me out of the penitentiary. And now I have a house, I have a car, my wife, my kids. It's a total different world. Our job is to overcome, to fall 7 and rise 8. And as small business people, we're going to get knocked down every day. And the odds are going to look insurmountable. But one thing we can learn from Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton both is to keep going, because both those people, whether you like their politics or not, are incredibly resilient. For us to succeed in small business, we must be equally, if not more, resilient. So congratulations to all the small business people here today as we celebrate Small Business Salute. The backbone of this country is small business people. As you well know, as the people stated the other day, we don't need more politicians, we don't need more laws, we don't need more rules, we don't need more regulations. We just need the government to say, go out there and invent and create and make new jobs. Think about the Wright brothers. When they went to Kitty Hawk, they didn't have to raise their hand and say, Mother, may I, Mr. Government, fly this airplane off this sand dune, which was incredibly dangerous. They just did it. We got to go out there and we got to invent and we got to change. The other thing I wanted to talk about is the fact that for all of us in small business, a scary thing is change. My mentor in business was W. Edward Deming. He rebuilt the Japanese economy after World War II, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And he always said, change is not necessary, survival is not mandatory. He said change is not necessary, survival is not mandatory. You know, the changes in the furniture businesses, I've been there since 1981, are monumental. As you can probably tell, I have a high tolerance for risk. This last promotion I did said if you pick the winning party, Democrat or Republican, and you buy a mattress $2,000 or better between February and July, then you get the mattress for free. My wife was totally against the idea. I thought it was a wonderful idea because I was convinced an independent would win. It didn't happen. So we were watching the election returns the other night. She said, what's the liability? I said, well, it's 13 million on Hillary and 10 million on Trump. She said, we're screwed either way. But you know, you got to do things different. When I started here in 1981, there was 2 newspapers, 4 television stations, and about 6 radio stations. Think about it now. Newspaper is dead and gone, dead man walking. Counting satellite radio, there's 15,000 radio stations. There's 100,000 internet outlets where you can buy furniture, and there's 1,500 television stations you can subscribe to on cable. It's a whole new world. When the business started offshoring to China, we had to change our model. And we started importing furniture from China like everybody else. And finally, I got enough sense to say we're not going to do that anymore. And we started doing Made in America. And that was a very positive change for us. And then came along the internet. And now people buy because of the convenience. They can sit there in their house in their underwear and buy whatever they want. It ships to them. One of the problems that retailers face across the country nowadays is people don't buy products anymore, they buy experiences. That's why the theme park business in the United States last year was up a whopping 61%. It's the selfie generation. So we have to combine experiences with product and have kind of a hybrid there. And so what we're going to do now, we got our first piece of equipment in yesterday at that store in the North Freeway and our store in Richmond. We're going to make half of our square footage into a furniture making factory, and you can come in there and order the furniture you want and see it made right in front of your very eyes. So we're trying to change to stay in business. We think that'll employ a lot of Houstonians, a lot of Texans, and a lot of people. I read this article the other day, and it says, Business Insider. The question about grand strategy that made Tim Cook, who's the CEO of Apple, unhappy on Apple's earnings call was based on Harvard professor's theory that is uncomfortable reading for Apple. Grand strategy is what are you going to do to keep your customers thrilled and engaged with your products over the next several years. Clayton Christensen of Harvard Business School says that in an attempt to explain why companies succeed, his conclusion is that consumers buy products that can complete specific jobs for them. They want to complete the job to be done. Classically, this is a restatement of the truism that people buy quarter-inch, while people buy quarter-inch drills, what they want actually are quarter-inch holes. And so Apple invented the iPad, 1,000 tunes in your pocket. And they invented the PC, and then they invented the iPad and the iPhone. So they asked Mr. Cook what his next big project was, and he didn't have an answer for him. And here's what they said. They said, in the future, buying an iPhone will be like buying a microwave. Something people do, but not a major event. He called the iPhone a liability because Apple was so dependent on it because it wasn't growing sales. What we have to do is figure out a way to deliver #remarkable products and services to our customers. Remarkable products and services means they'll go out there and tell their friends, neighbors, and relatives about the remarkable product or remarkable service they bought from your firm or from mine. That's what we have to do. We have to be focused on customers. But how easy is it for you and for me both to forget about those customers? You know, I remember when I started the furniture business 36 years ago, the first customer we ever had, I was so intent that their delivery went right and the furniture was right, called them back the next day, and then over the years, sometimes we see those customers as being an inconvenience to our business or an interruption to our business. Those customers are not an inconvenience or an interruption to our business. Those customers are the single reason we're able to get out of bed and go to work every single day. And we ought to thank God every day we're in Kingwood. Thank God every day we're in Houston. Thank God every day we're in Texas, where we have those thousands of wonderful customers we can serve every single day. So we have to rethink what we do every day. We have to think in terms of what are we going to do that will delight those customers. Because what you did yesterday isn't going to be good enough today, and what we do today will not be good enough tomorrow. We've got to stay ahead of the plan and expand the business. Because change is not necessary, survival is not mandatory. I want to talk about another change we're making. This deals with our personnel. I know that everybody in here has personnel issues. I know that everybody's business in here is only dependent on how good your employees are. I have an adopted child. Her name is Regina. She was a CPS child, and we've had her since she's 8 years old. She's now 16. And having Regina, my daughter Elizabeth introduced me to a guy named Bruce Perry, MD, who's the world's premier child psychiatrist, and also he is a neurologist. He said, as employers, what we need to do is let people have fun at work. He said, pleasure is the fuel of repetition. Think about that. Pleasure is the fuel of repetition. If it's fun for somebody to learn something new, they're going to look forward to going to school every day. When little Johnny and little Mary goes to first grade and the teacher is nurturing to them and tells them how good they're doing, they have a positive impression of school for the rest of their life. If they go to school the first day and they're 1,000 words behind in language because they had a rough upbringing and the teacher labels them as stupid, slow, can't study, they're going to hate school the rest of their life. Our job as employers is to make learning fun for our employees so they look forward to coming to work every day and they learn new things all the time. Create a learning environment. And the other thing I've learned is we have to let the employees and ourselves regulate ourselves. Now, nowadays at school, they tell little Johnny, sit down, shut up, pay attention. How can he do that? When you and I went to school, they had 4 or 5 recesses a day. Because at recess, all of a sudden you're having fun, the upper cortex of your brain works. You sit down and you're studying all day long, it just drains all the energy out of you. So I highly recommend you watch these videos on YouTube called Bruce Perry, MD. Brilliant man. What does child psychiatry have to do with how the employees and how we all work in the workplace? It has everything to do with it. And my last story is a story today about one of my heroes in life, and I'm lucky enough to have dinner with him tonight. His name is Bud Frazier, MD. 5 or 6 years ago, my beloved brother George, who I played football with at the University of Texas, he was a year ahead of me. He and I lived in the same room for 18 years. He was my role model, my mentor, my best friend, my beloved brother. 5 years ago, he had congestive heart failure, and he was at St. Luke's Hospital, Texas Medical Center, in intensive care. And he was in a coma for 6 weeks, and they were trying to find a heart donor so he could do a heart transplant. Bud Frazier has done more heart transplants than anybody in history, and he was taught by DeBakey and Cooley, so he's the top of the field. He was George's surgeon. So I would get off work at 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock on a Saturday or Friday or Saturday night working late retail, and I'd be down there in my brother's hospital room there in the ICU unit, kneeling there praying beside him. And even though he was in a coma, he knew I was there. We were that close. And quite often at 1 or 1:30 in the morning, in would walk Bud Frazier. And he would check on my brother, and we'd talk for a while. And I said, Dr. Frazier, it's 1:30 in the morning. What are you doing here? He said, I'm making rounds, taking care of all my patients, my customers, if you will. I said, do you ever sleep? He says, yeah. I said, what time do you operate in the morning? He said, first operation is 6 o'clock. He said, I'll go up to my office and sleep for 3 or 4 hours. I'll be good. And he was 69 years old then. Now he's 75. He led a life built for others. He was not in medicine and is not in medicine for money or prestige. He's in medicine for his customers, his patients, because that is his whole life. And I'm working with these guys on developing the world's first totally artificial heart. And all he asks every time is, when can I have that heart? Because I got patients up there dying right now. He wants to take care of his customers, his patients. That's all that matters to him. So about 6 weeks after my brother died, as Dr. Frazier said, he put up a valiant fight. There was too many bears in the woods. One of those interns from THI, Texas Heart Institute, was out at Gallery Furniture buying furniture, and I knew he was a doctor, a cardiology intern, because of his jacket. And I said to him, is Bud Frazier really as dedicated to his patients, his customers, as I think he is? He said, no, he's more dedicated. I said, how's that? He said, since he's the world's premier heart surgeon, they call him to go to these conferences all around the world and be the keynote speaker. And he'll go to some place like Zurich, Switzerland, with even a better view than this. And he'll do the keynote address for 2 hours, then everybody goes to a fancy restaurant or a resort to have fun. And he said, Bud Frazier never does that. He goes back in the hotel and Skypes back to Houston with his doctors because he's concerned about his patients, his customers. You know, we have a lot of customers. We have customers that buy things from us. We have customers who are going to buy things from us in the future. And we also have customers who are federal citizens. I think it's incumbent upon all of us to work smarter and to work harder and to grow our small businesses so we can employ more Americans. And have more of these kids say to you or say to me, my children will be the first one ever to graduate from high school, or because I have this job, I have structure, I have discipline, I have courage, and I am not in the penitentiary. Our job is to make the country great again, as Donald Trump would say, by making small businesses grow and helping each other expand and make profit and do good things with the profit. At the end of the day, being a small business person is a tough job. It's 24/7. You got to make payroll every week. But you know, as Tom Herman said at the University of Texas, at the University of Houston, what did I say? Freudian slip, all right. Okay. Nobody said it's going to be fun, easy, or fair. I think we should be grateful for everything and entitled for nothing. We should be grateful for the opportunities, grateful for customers, grateful for our friends, neighbors, and co-workers, and we should be entitled to one thing: helping other people get what they want so we can get what we want. Thanks very much.